Hi, this is Cary Artac with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Wicked Market Leaders for Monday, July 13th, 2026, in which I cover all of the stocks shown here over the next 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to start with Microsoft as usual. These are all weekly bar charts, by the way, and this is broad brushstroke analysis. There are no 3 to 5 day signals here. This is all 3 to 5 weeks and beyond. We did settle about 5 weeks ago below this 414.40 to 415.53 area, the low of the high, and back below this long-term channel structure, which indicated not only a test of the mid to upper 340s, which did happen 3 weeks ago, but I do think still we can anticipate this 311.40 descending channel bottom over the next few months. Certainly a settlement below 344.79 would set that in play, and within 3 to 5 weeks of doing so, 311.40 dropping weekly likely, where we could bottom out on a quarterly basis, quite possibly through the rest of the year. Upside 415.53, if we close above it, I don't see that as a significant long-term buy signal. I see that as a 3 to 5 week play to 462.95, where we actually could top out on a monthly basis and even fall away. I'm not excited about Microsoft through the rest of the year and well into next unless we can close above 462.95, and then we've got a long-term buy signal in which I think you've got investment grade long-term buy opportunity for Microsoft. Until then, your investment grade long-term buy opportunity happens to be 311.40. Let's move on to Meta. Now, Meta, big blast last week, closed not only above this near-term channel top, but also the longer-term structure at 662.68, but it did so inside the 1% zone. And so I do want to see a higher settlement on the week. Last week's settlement of 669.21. If we can close above that, higher on the week, we're also above this by full 1%. And that should then yield 796 and a quarter over the next 2 to 3 months, and 916.99 as a long-term objective. When might that be reachable? I don't know. By the end of Q1 27, we could double top at 796 and a quarter, certainly for a month or so. Closing above this does set up 916.99. But as far as Meta is concerned, I do see a higher settlement on the week as a clarified buy signal that should play out really through the rest of the year. Until then, we can fall away from here. We're still inside the 1% zone. And while we're technically above it, it's not by that required 1% mark that I've used for so long. If we happen to fall back, close below 662.68, not only anticipating 600.25 within a week or two, but I do think that 498.88 level in reach. Let me redraw this here. And that is wrong structure. Let me redo it. There it is. That is that 662 and change level I showed earlier. If we close back below it, I do think there's the very real risk over the next several months of falling to 498.88. Let me give you that exact number once again, 662.68. I'm just going to type that out because this is important. If we do close back below 662.68 this week, not only near term 600.25 and dropping aggressively, but I do think, let me just get rid of this because I think this is the point I need to make. Closing back below 662.68, there's the very real possibility of falling back to this significant 4-year channel bottom at 498.88 within about 2 to 3 months. So 2 to 3 months bullish continuation, even longer term above 662.68 by a full 1% margin. But if we close below 662.68, it is, I'm not crazy about being long Meta as we move through the rest of the year. I do think 498.88 is in play. Let's move on to Alphabet. Alphabet has been pretty quiet. I mean, we came off of this low area the couple of weeks ago. We closed pretty much at this channel top. We opened above this channel top 343.97 last week. It did hold last week. It can contain weekly selling pressures this week. And above this, I do think you need to allow 381.77, the low of the high, possibly this week. This thing has a way of moving substantially in a short period of time. But if we do close below 343.97, certainly if we open below this on Monday, we've got a sell signal down to 319.98. 319.98 is a 1-year structure we've yet to test, but if so, presents a buy opportunity through the rest of the year and into next. You can say that the bull trend from April 25, roughly 16 months or so, remains clearly intact above 319.98. Solid investment grade buy opportunity at 319.98 if given the opportunity, and I do think you will be given the opportunity if we close this week below 343.97. Until then, you can buy 343.97, anticipating 381.77. 381.77 is also preceded by a 5/8 Fibonacci at 378.66. So I present this as your sellable resistance for the week. This is kind of your 1 week play, if you will, a swing trade of buying 343.97, selling the upper 370s, low 380s. If we do close above 381.77, I do think upward continuation over the next several months to 450.41 is likely. Now, I will also say that the settlement above this descending channel top does imply the same, but this hesitation that we saw last week and the lower settlement on the week below the previous week's settlement price, I do think that implies a more neutral framework. And if you're looking for a kind of a reawakening of a bullish framework, that would be a settlement this week above 381.77, then expecting within 2 or 3 months 450.41, where we can top out on a monthly, possibly quarterly basis. Let's move on to Amazon. Amazon, this is pretty sloppy here, but it's still been holding roughly 245.03, this former channel bottom, having settled below it a couple of months ago, anticipating 211.95, this former descending channel top, and this channel bottom at 197.97. They converge at 201.50 at the end of August. I do think this area is still in play. Now, I will also say, as I did think I said last week, the low settlement price on the weekly chart from about 3 weeks ago, if you look at that black bar in there, 232.69. If we close below 232.69 this week, I think that does emphasize this, let's just call it 201.50 by the end of August, where we can bottom out quite easily through the rest of the year and well into next. This is a long-term support area. Once again, investment grade support, I call it, able to contain selling on an annual basis. Upside, if we happen to close above 245.03, I don't see that as a significant buy signal. What I see as a significant buy signal is a settlement above the 5/8 Fibonacci that is still exists at 258.31. That is the extremes, this May high against the recent low from several weeks ago. So, I would expect possibly this week, say a Monday settlement above 245.03. We can expect within the week 258.31, where we could top out through next week and even into August trade. If we close above 258.31, that is a buy signal through August into September. This zone of significant resistance that really begins at 285.79 but ends at 293.98. This is a 3-year channel top that can contain buying through the rest of the year and possibly through Q1 of next. I do expect it within 2 or 3 months of closing above 258.31. But until then, I do think by a degree this stock remains heavy below 245.03, anticipating the low 200 region that becomes confirmed with a settlement this week below 232.69. On to TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor. This is an incredible rally here from this April 25 low. We still have trend support that I'm going to call midterm in the 425.97 to 429.50 area. 429.50 is the low of the high. We tested that last week. And you do have this rising channel bottom that is based off the last, roughly 4 or 5 months activity at 425.97. If you're looking to buy TSM, it is this area, the mid to upper 420s, anticipating upward continuation to a channel resistance that I'll give in a moment. But if we do close this week below 425.97, we've got a good July high. And over the next 1 to 3 weeks, I would expect a more significant support at 382.51. This roughly 16-month channel bottom able to contain selling on let's just say through the rest of the year. Bullish momentum, this incredible rally from the April 25 low remains clearly intact above 382.51. We can round up here for the rest of the year. Let's talk upside, because holding above 429.50 will keep this formation at 507.47 in reach over the next 2 to 3 weeks perhaps. 507.47 can contain weekly buying pressures. I would only sell this area if you're already long taking profits. A short sale at 507.47. Be careful. Place your stop loss at the same exact time, because if we close above it, this thing becomes increasingly vertical, believe that or not. So let's move on to Intel Corporation. This is a monthly chart of Intel. We reached a long-term wave count this is a monthly chart, the month of June, 139.57. That's A minus B plus A is the full swing from that 2000 high against the 2008 low. 139.57 was tagged, and we've backed off substantially from it. Now, I've got some levels mapped out here, 106.71. Before I leave this chart, 98.33 is significant on the monthly chart only. It is the low of the high from June. If we close the month of July below 98.33, that looks to me like a long-term high. I'm not even going to point to the objective yet because I don't have it mapped out. I will say, though, near term, you can expect 88.52, which is this long-term 30-year channel top that can contain weekly selling pressures on the way down. But if we close the month of July below 98.33, I think that that is an indication of a good long-term high for Intel. And I'm not even going to give you the objective yet because it's just not mapped out. 106.71, though, before I get into all that, should be mentioned because it is a meaningful channel bottom that spans a couple of months of activity. We tested it last week. It can continue to contain weekly selling pressures, and from here we can round back up to that 139.57 26-year full wave count, and even to 145.16, which is the channel top to the 106.71 channel bottom. So I see nothing to do here near term but be long. 106.71, let's say all the way down to 98.33, the low of the high on the monthly chart. So we could slip below 106.71, tag that 98.33 level, which is once again the low of the high on the monthly chart. And as long as we close the week above 106.71, we have what I consider to be a likely 103.97 to 145.16, a 2 to 3 week, 3 to 5 week target where we can top out yet again on a monthly basis and fall away. Once again, closing below 98.33, and that is really reserved for the month of July. It does indicate longer-term bearish continuation. I think closing the week below 106.71, one should be a suspect of any bullish continuation. I do think a settlement this week below 106.71, even though, of course, it would not be for the month below 98.33, is a sell signal to respect, and I'll just leave it at that. Let's move on to a Broadcom. A Broadcom has yet to test its 1.5-year channel bottom at 337.63, but if tested, this is an opportunity to buy Broadcom through the rest of the year. We do have a near-term descending channel top, a pivot point through the rest of July. Below 400.74, we can quite easily fall over the next few weeks back to 337.63 long-term support. But if we do happen to close above 400.74, I expect the high settlement price on the weekly chart, all-time high of 446.77 within 1 or 2 weeks. And this will match over the next few weeks this descending channel top at 467.20. So it is this zone that I think is our breakout to the upside as we move into later Q3 and into Q4. But let's just keep it near term. Closing above 400.74, you have a buy opportunity through the rest of July, expecting this narrowing 46.67 region. Until then, we can anticipate the possibility of 337.63, which presents a buy opportunity not only for 3 to 5 week, but even 3 to 5 month swing traders. Let's move on to AMD. AMD has decent support, low of the high 495.35 and this channel bottom at 485.09. This is your area to buy into through the month of July and into August, and above which, let's take a look, above which we have this steeply rising channel top. Now, we did close above this spike high from about a month and a half ago, and I see this as an important and constructive step after having come close to testing the support area last week. Having closed above 546.44, I think does set this 679.61 level up, I'm going to say, as a possible 2 to 3, 3 to 5 week target. This is quite a feat, though, because this is rising at a very steep pace. But I see no real clear resistance to sell into until then. So if you're a long AMD, respect 679.61 and climbing as an area to take at least some profits, if not all. Now let's talk downside, that if we did close below 485.09 this week, which doesn't look likely at this point in time, but if so, the market pivots south aggressively through August, 3 to 5 weeks, 351.50 in reach. And this is a longer-term channel top that we settled above back in April, which is when this acceleration really sort of took root. 351.50, if tested in the coming month, 2 or 3, can absorb selling through the rest of the year. And I think a realistic 3 to 5 week objective if we close this week below 485.09. And finally, Palantir. Palantir closed back above this channel structure, 124.50, a couple of weeks ago. It held last week. If we close back below it, I do think think the emphasis is once again to the downside. 92.58 in reach within a month or two of closing below 124.50. This structure able to contain selling on a monthly, possibly quarterly basis. It does converge in November with this low area in the low to mid 60s. But 92.58, solid support, able to contain selling on a monthly, possibly quarterly basis. I would expect it within a month or so of closing below 124.50. Until then, holding above 124.50, I do think this 157.43 to 169.89 area remains in play by the end of August, where we could top out through September and fall away. If we can close in the next month, 2 or 3 above the 169.89 channel top, that's a significant buy signal through the rest of the year and even well into 27. I think that pretty much rounds it out. I did it all in 15 minutes this week. I think that's kind of a record. Hope that wasn't too fast for you. You can always rewind. I will be back, of course, next week with another Wicked Market Leaders Report. You have a great week. Please click like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.